to
Howdy.
the series, Believe It, Speak It, Do It. Um, I've known Raymond for many years. He's done consulting for different universities across the country, in particular in sports as well as just in life. Raymond, I know that you have a cross section of people who come to you for advice. And one of the things that everyone always asks about is this new catchword called manifestation. And I think just like every other word out there, that word has become a catch-all and an industry word. And I want to ask you to, can you please give us some insight into what manifestation is and how do we use it? Because when we're manifesting, it seems like we're always trying to manifest something external without using the internal. So I wanted you to open up with just that word in and of itself. What is manifestation and how is it created?
Well, it's done several ways, but manifestation is the intent of creating a desire or pursuing a desire until it comes to fruition.
Is
Uh,
that desire like a goal or a dream? Is that the same word?
it could be, yes. Well, I won't necessarily say go, because a lot of times when people try to manifest things, it's usually within a realm where that they usually don't have 100% control. So there's pieces in there that sort of have them to acquiesce to outside influences. And so what they try to do is that they pursue it in several different ways. You have it's sort of an intentional or unintentional way to sort of go through the engagement of all your thoughts, all your words, and all your deeds. That's how manifestation is created. A lot of people would do simple things like affirmations, but there are so many other ways to sort of manifest your desires and bring it to fruition. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that we are constantly procreating, which a lot of people, that's what I call manifestation, but it's unintentional. If you really get down to it, that I think a lot of the scientists have said that within a 24-hour period, an individual has approximately 50,000 thoughts. Of that 50,000 thoughts, 95% of them are repetitive. And of that 95%, 80% is either negative or random. So when we go through our thought processes, we have a tendency to start manifesting. I was told years and years ago that everything that I experience and everything that's around me and my circumstance is what I created. Now, I refused to believe that for years because I felt like I didn't have that much control in a lot of things that were going on around me. But as years passed, I slowly but surely began to realize that some of it was being created just unintentional. And when I started realizing that it was done intentionally, I started becoming more intentional about my manifestation because I realized that I wasn't in control of 50,000 thoughts within an 18-hour working period, awaken period. So because of that, I said I have to set time aside and I have to truly be intentional about trying to pursue my desires.
So you actually decided that since I have access to 50,000 thoughts, and within those thoughts, they're going to create my outcome. Say, for instance, if I'm an athlete and I remember once we had this discussion and you said, an athlete came up and they said that, well, I prayed about winning. And your words back to them was, and so did everybody else on that line. If
Absolutely.
you're wanting to get a project, and I know you have actors and actresses that come to you and they want this role, and they said, I prayed about it. And you said, so did everybody else in the room, right?
Right.
The difference in who gets it and who doesn't get it is who puts the most energy into it. I'm asking that as a question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like Well, my question back to the individual after I asked that, after I told him that, I said, so whose prayer does God answer? And God answers everybody's prayers. But a lot of what we do, God, the universe, however you define your higher power, you have to be very intentional, not about your belief, not about your faith, but about your knowing. A lot of people have faith that they're going to reach their outcome, or they believe that they're going to reach their outcome. When you put it into that category, it has the potential of coming to fruition. And so, therefore, you've relegated to a percentage of outcome as opposed to no doubt that you will reach your outcome. Now, what I mean by that is that a lot of times we have a tendency to, I give you an example. Say you're trying to manifest a new car. The first thing,
Hmm.
the first thing that a human mind would do is that they will start trying to put into place processes for obtaining the car. And some of the processes they put in place is to ensure the probability of receiving it as opposed to the probability of failure. And simply because their focus is not wanting to fail, that becomes the core desire of their manifestation. Now, let me explain that. The body is nothing but walking energy. We all understand that it's 70% water, 60 to 70% water. And then, of course, we can go down to the different organs and the bones and everything. All those contain water. And water is what creates energy. When you decide to manifest something, your energy goes out. It can go out in the form of a prayer. It can go out in the form of affirmation. Normally, what a lot of people do, they pray on it. What other people do is that they start putting up affirmations and they try to convince themselves that this is going to come to fruition. And they feel like the repetitive um, uh, uh, repeating of their particular desire is going to help bring it or propel it into the universe so they can get it back. Okay, it doesn't work that way because you're looking at an outside influence to create it for you as opposed to you creating it yourself. Now, there's something called the
Okay,
triad.
when you say that, you said you're looking for an outside influence, which is the wording of the mantra
Absolutely.
and the words of the mantra to create it as opposed to knowing inside. Is that the difference? So
That's the,
if I'm saying something as a fact, like I'm winning this championship or I'm getting this job, because I know there are people on here that I think are just amazing at that component, which is whenever they say they're going to do something and they say it even over and over again, like Latanya Wynn, who's going to do one of our sessions at some point, she always manifests her desired outcome, and it always comes fairly easy for her. It's very shocking. Why do you think that is? And then some people manifest and then go into the stress mode of how do I create that? Are they focusing too much on creating it externally and not internally? Where's the blockage?
okay, let's drill down into it. First of all, what is your purpose in asking for it? If I have a lack of money and I'm trying to manifest money, the core of my being is coming from a place of lack.
Gotcha.
And the universe is very literal. When you put the energy out there, you have to understand that when you use the triad system of thought, word, and deed to help you to manifest, that's going through all your thoughts, your words, and your actions will help create your outcome. That's just a basic approach that I think is psychology 101 even. So you have to actually put things into motion. Now let's take an athlete. An athlete is training, does everything in his or her power to ensure that physically they are able to actually compete at that level to create the outcome that they desire. But let's say the athlete has a fear of specific individuals that they're competing with, or a fear of failure, a fear of letting not only themselves down, but letting the people who support them down also. So you
Mhm.
have to understand that our emotions is a very strong catalyst for energy. And if you attach your emotion to any desire, well, then it's going to give you either the diminished or the heightened outcome that you desire. If you attach a negative emotion to it, fear, that's ego, and that's an emotion, apprehension, being, of course, we can say scared. Of course, a lot of people can be really scared to death. You have to understand that all those things that diminish, they will diminish the outcome of your desires simply because that's the reason for you asking. You're not asking because you know, which is what I said in the beginning, not faith, not belief, because you know that you're going to get it. Now, everyone gets into the blocks and they all say the same prayer. And you see a lot of this on TV where they do this and they do that, and they don't say it their prayer and they're ready to compete. They've all had the same prayer. But after you have that prayer, someone says, "Ooh," and someone has a fear. The next person, if they don't have a fear, they may glance in their peripherals at the person that they think can probably give them competition, which converts back into fear, which is an emotion and is attached to the desire. The same thing goes for a person that gets there and they are thinking about a probable injury that they've had in the past or a probable injury that could come from the competition, which converts into fear and is attached to the desire. And then there's one person that gets there that don't give a darn. All they want to do is run. Now understand, I've told you there's a triad: thought, word, and deed. So all their thoughts have been to just win, to compete at a high level, to win. They don't believe it. They don't have faith in it. They know that they're going to win. It's from a cellular standpoint. It's the visceral part of the core of their being. I know I'm going to win this. I know I'm going to win this. And it's without fear. Also, they talk about winning. They may even talk about people that they know they're going to beat who can't beat them. And they
Uh-huh.
articulate that at every single area that pertains to their level of competition. That means with their coaches, that means with their teammates, that means with their immediate family, that means with their friends. They're consumed with this idea that nobody can beat them. So that would be word. And then the action. Now, I'm going to give you some ideas of how do you incorporate thought, word, and deed into where you can actually create that desired outcome. But that'll come a little bit later. But this is what creates your outcome. And so when you line up, everyone's saying the same prayer, but maybe one or two people, sometimes three people are so committed to that outcome that they have no doubt in their mind, regardless of who lines up against them, that they're going to win. Or some people will get there and say, "I just want to run my best PR. You know, I want to run the fastest time I've ever run before," and they don't even incorporate the idea of winning. Now, in order for you to do anything, whether it's in sports, whether it's in entertainment, or whether it's in business, one thing that I do tell people is that you can't be a neophyte or you can't be an amateur to approach your particular desire. You have to be an expert. You
Mm.
have, you have to put in the time to know every nuance of what you're engaging in, your sport in some cases, your craft in terms of entertainment, whether it's on stage for singing or whether it's on camera for acting. If you're in a profession, a lot of people in business, they're there 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, and they're there just to work. So I'm going to work. And their passion is not to know as much about their job as possible, but just to know enough so they can get a paycheck and not get in trouble. So they approach their jobs from a preservation mode. You can approach your sport from a preservation mode. All you want to do is survive. All you want to do is get that shoe contract. And once you get the shoe contract, well, then some of the other pieces of it dwindles in terms of your engagement into wanting to create. So you have to be an expert at whatever you are approaching. You cannot see yourself as just there to compete because everyone's a good athlete. I've seen people who have been lesser athletes do extremely good. I knew a guy who never lift weights, who never did any exercises, and he played football and he's now in the Hall of Fame. But his desire to compete and his knowing of what he can accomplish was greater than anything else. I mean, he had no fear, no apprehensions, or no doubt that he was going to be anything less than the best. So that commitment in itself takes a lot of work. That's what separates those who are considered very pedestrian in their field and those who are experts. Does that make any
So,
sense?
yes, it makes a lot of sense. Is there anyone on here that wants to kind of give us an example of a scenario where they had an intention and had a deliberate manifestation and how it came out? Does anybody ever remember using that? I can use me. Who is that? Did someone say something? I don't want to interrupt. There were many a times, Raymond, where I knew that I knew that I knew that I would win. And there were times when I thought I should win because I had the most phenomenal team and lost. But I faked the feeling and overlooked all the negative energy that was surrounding it. And then I was disappointed I lost, but not shocked. When I won, everybody else was shocked with lesser of a team, and I wasn't surprised. It was learning how to deliberately get in that space that is the biggest challenge. How do you deliberately get into that space? Because basically what you're saying is, if I'm preparing to compete against others in business for this project, when I'm creating my presentation, I have to create it with a mindset. Is that what you're saying? Or when I'm training, not only do I have to physically prepare myself, but am I physically preparing myself mentally to win? Or am I just going out and hoping that my physical convinces me that I can win? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I understand what you're asking. A lot of it has to do with you have to understand that as you exist in the present, you bring to the table all the other pieces of self that has had some of the same similar experiences to this time and place called now. Now, what I mean by that, those experiences that you had in the past, there may have been some that have been highly successful. There's some that may have been somewhat painful, but still successful. There may have been some failures, and there may have been times that you were totally disappointed in your output. So when you bring all those pieces together, and then you're asking for this in this time and place called now, you're asking, this is what I desire. Well, then we have a tendency to go back into those other pieces and we review those to make sure or to ensure that we're not doing anything wrong to create the undesirable outcome as opposed to the desired outcome.
So we're working from a place of lack as opposed to a
You're
place of
working from a
knowing.
place of lack. So viscerally, what you're doing is that you're attaching a negative emotion to a probable possible to a probable positive outcome. You're looking for a positive outcome, but you're attaching all the negative emotions that brought you to the thought of trying to reach this outcome. So that's the reason why you create it. A lot of people don't even manifest things that they know they can get. You don't have to manifest breathing. That's automatic. We don't manifest breakfast, because we know we can get that one way or another. We manifest things that we feel that is out of reach of our control. And because of that, we can either attach a negative to it or we can become positive about it. Some people have competed all their lives, and some people have done things professionally all their lives and have had nothing but success that they never really fear any other outcome but the successful outcome. And then they pushing themselves physically, they're pushing themselves intellectually, they're pushing their talents and their abilities and their trainings to even be better because this is what they truly, truly enjoy.
Like a LeBron or Kobe.
Probably
Did
so.
that.
Yes, probably so. They really enjoy it. It's at the core of their being. And regardless, you have to understand that regardless of what the outcome may be in increments, like say you're playing for the Super Bowl or your desire is to go to the Super Bowl. You understand throughout this whole process, you may not go undefeated. You may have some losses in terms of some games. You may drop some balls. You may have some fumbles, but that ain't your outcome. Your outcome is to go to the Super Bowl and win. So the same thing goes in your profession, the same thing goes in your sport. And let's say track and field. So say you're shooting to go to the Olympics and you're shooting for a goal. Now some people say, I just want a medal. But let's say you shoot for the goal. I always say shoot for the moon because if you miss, you're at least amongst the stars. So say you're gonna go for the goal. You understand that every race you're not gonna win, but your level of competition is gonna be so high. You know that that's gonna be adding to the constitution of a winner or a competitor. So you become a stronger competitor. And as long as you are actually pushing yourself, and as long as you're going through all the words and all the thoughts and all the actions that's going to create your outcome, don't go through this process and have hope. Don't go through this process and have faith and have belief. You have to be arrogant about it. You have to be somewhat single-minded about it to where you actually obsess. I think I mentioned to Davian a long time ago that Boat was on drugs. I said, "You think Boat's on drugs?" And he said, "No." And as the years passed, and as I saw him compete, and as I saw him do the certain things, I said, "This man is consumed with his sport. He's consumed with the outcome. He has no fear of failure, but he knows he's going to succeed." And the minute you get fear of failure out of your consciousness, the minute that you push fear away from your circumstance, well, then you pursue that with a passion that nobody else has in your field. Again, it can be within the professional workplace, in corporate world, it can be in entertainment, and it can be in sport. You have to be single-minded, you have to be arrogant, and the more I hear them talk, if you listen to a person who is a star within their profession, there's always a level of arrogance. Some of us like it, some of us don't. Every once in a while, there comes a person who's very humble and who can articulate their humility in front of cameras. But I guarantee you, their arrogance and the pieces of themselves that says, I'm ego-driven to reach my desire regardless, could be behind closed doors. And you have to be that way to create that. Now to give you some different points, let's talk about thought, word, and deed. Now, we already know that in your thoughts, you have to really do away with all the things that are minimal. of creating your outcome. You have to get rid of fear. You have to get rid of apprehension, and you have to get rid of doubt. Once you get those things out of your mind, well, then you're able to move forward.
Let me
Now,
ask you a question. One, you can live with some fears if you utilize the fears to drive you forward. But if fear is fear and doubt the same, is fear and apprehension the same? Because there are some fears that are healthy. It's like that little bit of edge you get right before the gun goes off. Is that more of an anxiety than a fear?
I was going to address that. The way that you actually get rid of those is you become friends with them. That's what I was going to say next.
Okay, good.
You have to become friends with your fear. You have to allow your fear to be so much a part of you that it's not fear of not receiving, but it's just a fear knowing there's a fear of competition. Who are you competing with? You know, the same thing goes in a lot of people. I used to do a lot of research, and I used to do a lot of grant writing. And whenever they gave me the information, they said, "This is what I need." The first thing that came to me was, "Ooh, this is a lot." And I was fearful of actually doing it. I said, "But you know, I can do this." And I used that fear. I was friends with my fear because my fear is what pushed me into it. So you have to become friends with fear. Even if you are apprehensive, you have to become friends with it. You have to utilize that to your advantage. Now, affirmations would do it. That's going into word. Affirmations would do it. But it also is changing your vocabulary, how you talk about it. Everyone says uh, they want their event. What's the word that y'all use, Bev? A performance. That's the word.
Yeah,
An
you took
athlete,
that word out.
the athletes that I dealt with in the past, they always would come to me. Well, whenever I try to perform, I said, "Well, what do you mean by performing?" And they said, "Well, I'm trying to perform." I said, "But where's competition come in?" Well, that's part of performing. You know, no, it's not. So you have to change your vocabulary to not say it's not a performance, it's competition.
Is that the same for business and entertainment as
That's
well?
the
It's
same
more
for
of a
absolutely.
competition when you are competing against someone, and we're in a time of a societal mindset of lack. How do we overcome that and not get consumed because of the differences in how things used to be and how things are, and deal with this mindset?
Policing, self-mental policing. It becomes a work. You have to really work at on the internal piece of you. Now, everybody has negative thoughts. Everybody. There's not a person that goes with a negative thought, entertains it. And sometimes some people carry the negative thought from beginning all the way to end. You have to
Meaning
understand.
that they create scenarios behind the negative thought to reinforce
Absolutely.
it, unknowingly reinforce it.
Unknowingly. If you do have a negative thought, or if you speak something negative, the way that you can always counsel that. The universe is very forgiving if you are aware. You have to be self-aware. You have to self-police. Whatever you say, whatever you think, it takes 16 seconds to counsel it. If you allow it to continue to consume and get into your thought processes, it becomes ingrained into your energy. And you sort of incorporate that into your desired outcome. A lot of people don't really care about the failure piece. I shouldn't say a lot of people. There's some people who don't care about failure. They don't care about the fear. They may fear, but they don't really. It doesn't really affect them. They're apprehensive, but it really doesn't affect them. They still do. Some people approach their professions in a preservation mode, meaning that they want to make sure as they move through the process, they don't lose anything, or that they are kept, or they are put into a position to where people can at least see that they are good at what they do. And so make that their job, they'll make that the whole part of their work to ensure that people accept them and embrace them for the work that they are accomplishing. And you have to understand that that gives your experience a life expectancy. And sometime you're going to get burned out and you're going to have to move on. So you have to have a passion for what you're doing. When you have a passion, you're not concerned about what people think. You just go and do it. So a negative thought can be counseled within 16 seconds. And so there's a way to control and police yourself, but you have to be very intentional about this. Now,
What about
again,
at the site of competition, or as you walk into a or something goes wrong and something is altered? How do you readjust that on a fly? Is that just having a go-to affirmation?
well, hopefully you don't have to go through the point. You don't have to get to that point to where when you get onto the track, you're going through those array of emotions and you got to use something to deal with it right then and there because that robs you of your energy to compete. Now you have to understand that there's physical energy and then there's internal energy or that there's spiritual energy. Now, if you combine both of them, they become a huge adversary to push away all the other doubt, fear, and apprehension that you may have within your consciousness within that moment. Now, if you are doing the exercises of thought, word, and deed, you're policing your thoughts, you're using the right words, you're changing your vocabulary. And then, of course, the deed is going to come from the visualization piece. Now, there's several forms of visualization. There's linear visualization, which is very focused visualization, which you are running a repetitive story or you're running a repetitive event and you're actually seeing yourself going through from beginning to end. And then there's panoramic visualization. Panoramic visualization is when you sort of bring in the whole entire scenery around you, not exactly what you see on the track from beginning to end, or what you see in terms of business, or what you see in terms of performance, but seeing the whole thing. You're looking at the whole stadium, all the people that are in the stadium, and you're also looking at the track and you're looking at everything. So you incorporating the whole entire visual. And so you feel like that you are surrounded around the experience as opposed to being strictly focused on the experience. And then there's sensory. Sensory is a combination of the first two, to where you're focused, to where you have a panoramic view, but you also have the smells, you have the sounds, you have all the incorporated things to where you are physically there in that time and place. And so
And
through
that's
this,
the most powerful one, that
all, all, all
all
three
of them.
all three are powerful, but it depends on how you process information. Some people can use focused visualization and be very successful. And usually those who aren't successful, they eventually say, it ain't working. Or they go back and say, look, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get from it. Some people who incorporate the panoramic visualization would do real good because they process information like that. You have what's called visual processing, auditory processing, and then you have kinesthetic or sensory processing. So however you
So we
process,
got three ways of doing the visualization, and Dr. Shaw gave us some real good points on the visualization, which was good. And so what you're saying is that you can incorporate the whole arena or the
yes,
whole business meeting. And we
yes,
even talked about at one point, Raymond, that um, sometimes like we're anticipating a conflict or anticipating, and we anticipate the negative and we spend time creating it, and then it doesn't happen the way we thought it was, so we wasted all that energy. So what you're saying is also on an athlete like a Bolt, and taking Bolt as a magnification of life, that he doesn't waste any energy. He takes all of his internal energy and puts it in a one mindset, which is winning, and then he physically prepares himself with that mindset every single day. because I know that one of the things that you say is that if you really want to be successful, you don't get successful at the date of competition or at the date of presentation or the day you get that contract. You become successful the day you step in the arena to begin to prepare. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Every day. So that is that being present.
Being present. You have to understand that training for, and I like to work with athletes a lot simply because most athletes, and this isn't a knock against athletes, are very linear in their approach to training. It's all physical. There's some mental incorporation of attitude and some visualization that's done, but the bulk of the work is all physical. And it's you try to create a connection between muscle and the intuitiveness of response and all, but it all outpictures itself physical. But you have to understand, again, like I said in the very beginning, the body is between 60 to 7% water. So we are walking energy. And so the first thing you should do, part of your training is hydrating. Y'all probably already know the hydrating piece. Another part of it is breathing. Another part of it is becoming very familiar with your arena of competition. One thing that I used to do when I was actually working in DC is that before a big presentation, I would always go to the boardroom and I would sit down in the boardroom. And I wouldn't sit there and go over my presentation, but I would sit there to become very familiar with that room. And I understood every corner, every crack in the wall, every fingerprint that was on the table, and every wire that I could see under the table. I was very familiar with that environment. And so there was no sense of being out of sorts or being in unfamiliar territory and then having to go inside to create something so I can feel more comfortable about my environment. So
So
if you,
just like for an athlete, we always say, wherever you are, make yourself at home. Same thing in business, same thing in entertainment. You have to make yourself at home in that environment so that that environment doesn't drain energy from you because you're uncomfortable in it.
right, what I suggest to them specifically, and I think I worked with one of your girls, and I walked them around the track. And we were walking around the track, we were talking about different cues and different keys that they were experiencing at different points of their event. And when we got through, she says, "I've never done that before." I said, "What, talk about your event?" She said, "No, walk around the track. I'm always either training on the field, I'm always running, but I never just walked around and just looked at it." And when we walking around, I would always ask at certain pieces, I say, "Right around here, what do you hear?" And some would say, "I hear the breathing of the person next to me." Some would say, "I hear the crowd." Some would say, "I hear this." And they were very familiar with the arena that they were competing in. It doesn't have to be that same exact stadium, but it's a track. And I brought them back into that time and place to where they could go back and grasp and put into that particular moment what it felt like to hear the crowd. So that hearing the noise wasn't intimidating to them. Hearing the person coming up on them breathing heavy wasn't intimidating to them. Hearing the footsteps behind them or hearing the footsteps in front of them wasn't intimidating anymore. And so then it didn't take their energy for that brief second to cause the muscle to tighten up enough to make them slower in their level of competition. Simply because for every thought that you have to understand you're using energy. The body's walking energy. So you're trying to preserve as much energy as you possibly can, not only prior to your level or prior to your event, but during your event, so you can use as much of it as you complete your level of competition. So it becomes a crescendo event as opposed to an all out. And they understood that. She understood that. And
Which is the Beyoncés and the Bolts and the Bill Gates. It's those individuals who are not concerned about the process, but in creating the outcome every single day. They put all their energy into a focused outcome without doubt
They're
at the
not,
highest quality of levels
and they're
every single day.
and they are not intimidated by the external factors that exist within their environment. You have to be very comfortable about those external factors that exist around you, and you have to be very, very friendly with your emotions. You understand that I'm going to have negative thoughts, but I can change that. I'm going to have fear. I'm going to become friends with that. I'm going to be apprehensive. I'm going to become friends with that. I'm going to become friends with my doubt. And I'm going to use that as a mechanism that's going to propel me or push me further into a higher level of competition.
Got it. Does anyone have any questions or comments? So I want to say thank you, Raymond, so much. I think the most important component that we talked about was thought, word, and deed, which is putting all your energy every day into not just your physical preparation or whatever the process is, but every single day, knowing that you're going to create what you desire. It's that knowing component that makes the difference between success and what we call failure. And last question I have for you, Raymond, is there really any such thing as failure, or is it just an opportunity to learn?
Failure is process of success.
Failure is just part of the process.
It's part of the process for being successful. There's no appreciation for having light unless you've been in the dark. And so there's no really appreciation or desire to be successful unless you've experienced failure. Failure has more learning tools in it than success. There's more to learn from your failure, and it can either push you. It's just like being friends with fear and apprehension. You be friends with your failure, and you understand that it's not your outcome, it's the process to achieve your outcome. So when you look at it like that, you're not looking at and you're not taking life in at a linear level. You're looking at it multidimensional, and you're seeing how to apply each one of those levels to the holistic treatment of who you are at the core belief of who you are. Again, we all walk in energy, and there's intentional and unintentional manifestation. There's so many random thoughts, and then there's so many intentional thoughts. You have to be policing, you have to be self-aware, and you have to catch yourself. Again, 16 seconds for every negative thought, 16 seconds for every negative word that you put out there in the universe.
Just
Simply
say something positive behind it.
say
Do a
something.
positive confirmation.
If it's no more
That's
than
all you got to do.
if it's no more than counsel, or that ain't me. I don't know why I thought of that. I don't know why I said that. That ain't me.
Yep, something that simple. Latanya, I'm going to let you close it out. Any input from you into the group?
Wow, Bev, put me on the spot. So I have been Bev's student for 35 years now. Started with her when I was 17, and now I'm 53, just to kind of give some insight. And Bev, I'm waiting for your life lesson. I have watched you over these last 35 years, so I want to know when I can sit here and hear you. And Raymond, always good, to hear and reconnect with you. But I sit here more as post athletic, to truly let the athletes know, of course, there is life after athletics. And unfortunately, because of life and aging, there will come a point where you will not be able to compete just because you will be 30, and now that 21, 22-year-old that you are now is going to be coming up. And just with life itself, you're just going to have to make that transition into professional work life, and that is where I think my strength comes, is to help you see how you can transfer everything that has made you the athlete that you are today to then make you a successful professional for the latter years of your life, because your athletic competition is only 1/4 of your life. There is still 3/4 quarters left for you to live.
And it's all competition.
And it's all competition. I am just as
Same
competitive
thing that you pick up.
just as competitive now as I was when I was in high school winning state championships, college winning conference championships, at NCAAs, at world championships. It's the same competition. And if you can take that work ethic, that drive, that competition, that teamwork, you are going to be successful in the rest of your life. And I can tell you that for sure. If I see a resume and I see a former student athlete, I'm going to hire you just because I know what you bring to the table. I know you're not going to quit. I know you're going to give me everything that you have, and I know we're going to be successful. And in my almost 30 years, I have been successful in every professional arena that I have been in because of what I brought to the table as a former student athlete and as a student of Bev for the last 35 years.
Well, thank you for that. But I'm gonna just say your last name was always Win, and that's all you thought about. And that's the mindset that we want everyone to take from here tonight, which is have a basic fundamental mindset that you can win. And in everything that you do, take that in, and everything else becomes surmountable. There's nothing that you can't overcome if you will just take that simple mindset. I train to win. I eat to win. I work to win. If you can keep that simple mindset, you don't have to worry about humility, because you're not saying I'm better than everyone else. You're just declaring your own personal goals. And with that in mind, I want to thank Raymond from the bottom of my heart. As Dr. Shaw left us with breathing, Raymond leaves us with 3 major components: thought, word, and deed. 3 against 1. If person has only one of those, you beat them. At this level, at the level that all of you guys are obtaining to, everybody's in physical shape. Everybody is intelligent. Everybody's good enough to get the job. What makes the difference is thought, word, deed. The energy you bring into the arena determines your outcome. Nobody else does. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for being part of the telecast. And good night.
Good night and thank you.